Okay.
Mm.
Welcome everyone. I'm the philosopher's poet, and I have another special guest on today. Um, she goes by the alias name on social media as Allure X Alchemy or Allure
Yeah.
times Alchemy. Which one is it?
Will be X.
X. Yeah,
Allure X. Yeah.
yeah, yes. Um, I came across her Instagram account. A lot of interesting and insightful messages. I believe that was just scratching the surface though, because I know you have a Facebook page. I'm currently setting up a new Facebook page for some
Mm.
content. Um, and I saw some sort of brief glimpses into what you're putting out to the world or to the collective consciousness, your message and your purpose in terms of the physical and the spiritual and your own experiences. But that's something I'd really like to dig into actually a bit about your background, how you came to be on your mission and purpose, and your relationship with, I'm going to say the other side for lack of a better word, but
Mm.
what I really mean is spirit guides, those who live on another plane. Um, yeah, and then I'll talk a bit more about my own experience in this realm and the importance of it, and also some of the pitfalls. But yeah, let's. I'd love to hear.
Oh, maybe I can start from okay, what is my background, right? It started when I was young. I was born into a Taoist family.
Yeah.
So in Asia, our Taoism is paganistic style. That means there's rituals involved, there's offerings involved, there's prayers. You go to the temple and everything, which it may sound different from the Alan Watts version because the Alan Watts, what he's promoting or what he talked about is Taoism in concept. That is the origin of Taoism. But in Han Dynasty, the emperor and the empresses in the empire, they decided to adopt it and institutionalize it, making it a religion. So from then on, a lot of the Asia countries, when we practice Taoism, is with ritual, with offerings. So when I grew up in that kind of family, what we believe in Taoism, likewise Buddhism, Buddha and all this, the statues are also uh, kind of been worshipped in the temple. So they could be in a shared temple or a different temple. But what I'm trying to say is that coming from that kind of background is a multi-god system. That
Okay.
means you don't believe in a single God. No, they're different from Christian faith or the Catholic faith. In addition, because I'm born in Singapore, Singapore is a multicultural country. So we came through a time during the late 60s where we had a terrible racial riot. So
Mm.
from then on, the whole country, at one point, we became an orphan country overnight. So there was a lot of things that decided, by the pioneer batch of the politician, and we have to balance out in terms of races and culture and everything. And that also set in stone the religion aspect of it, which means every religion is kind of been treated as equal. So you can have the temple next to a church and everything. That there's no segregation or whatsoever. In fact, the government deliberately put it side by side, or
And
even in the same building.
so that's interesting. I don't actually know a lot about the history of Singapore, and
Yeah.
you raised a point about segregation, religions, cultures, and races. So was there like a hierarchy? What was the actual what was the existing status quo, so to speak?
Okay, because we base on the four culture or the four races, main four races in Singapore, which is the Chinese, which
Mm.
is me, the Malays, right, the Indians, and then they call the others, which is like Eurasian, which is like a mix of like maybe Caucasian with there's a specific blood type ancestry without me breaking it down because it's a bit sensitive.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because with all these four main races that we always group together, we base that on the main. Of course, there will be the other that are on the fringe. They are too being respected, or as long as they're recognized as a traditional religion. What the government over here that they did put out is that all the top religious leaders, they regularly have meetings. They have
Okay.
to sit down together. They have to do the activities together. So there's a constant effort over here to always, in terms of race, in terms of culture, in terms of religion, to always have this interaction.
Yeah.
And coming from that kind of background when I grew up, whether it's in terms of religion or in terms of going to the public school or any, that you're always, even in, I stay in a government flat,
Mm.
and the next door, that in one block, how many percentage of certain race is always being allocated. So there's a constant effort from the government to make sure we mix. So when I come out in the kind of environment, I obviously will know a little bit about every form of culture, religion.
Yeah.
And when I born into a Taoist family and all, it all makes sense to me because it's a multi-god. If we can all born in different colors, that's always I believe. That means there is more than one possibility. There shouldn't be only one. A certain religion they like to kind of promote, doesn't mean it's totally wrong because that was the past. What is in the present is a totally different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when that set into the I grew up majority with that kind of background until then something of course once you into all this kind of religious kind of practices, you're familiar with it, every kind of occasion you go. But it reached a point that in 2012 I have a huge so-called, I call it enlightenment. What
Okay.
happened was I decided to, just for some reason, I felt like reading some Buddhist mantra. So I
Mm.
started reading it, and I read it every day, twice a day, for about 9 months. And one day I wake up, my mind was changed. I just look at things differently. My mind was expanded. Basically, it's upgraded, like supercomputer.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I'm always able to think from the logical as well as the creative side. I'm always able to look at two sides of it.
Mm.
But with that, it's like it's basically turbo speed,
Mm.
and I find it really interesting. But that also begins, I suppose, a cycle, the whole cycle of this whole awakening where my life started to be falling apart.
Of course.
And eventually it crescendo to me losing my husband to cancer in the
Sorry.
year 2020.
Yeah.
And because of after I lost him, we were very close. So the sudden gap, the sudden void, because it was pretty sudden, even though it was cancer. And everything started to kind of, I describe it that I live in the muted world because I, no longer have anybody that I can talk to. And grief also makes you kind of look into yourself.
Mm.
But it was then that things start happening, which means my spirit guides and all this, the first instant appearance. And I have to, being skeptical myself, because I know I have this void, it's in my imagination. So
Mm.
I have to be fair. So I went through various divination methods, and it was pretty tedious, but every damn thing that I go, whether it's go to the temple to do, or whether it's I just randomly pick a card online reading and everything come back is yes, 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 yes. That I knew. So I in my initial period, every contact for any being, I did that. Every conversation that they had with me, I did that. It was pretty stressful, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm right. I'm not mad, basically.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And true enough, I mean, how do you get going to a temple when you throw the oracle? That means a yes or a no.
Yeah.
You are in front of a divine being. Yeah, you can't get like how many rounds you go every time it's yes. You bound to, if you have a yes or no, you're bound to have the odds. But it's because of all these various things that I knew. Eventually it took me about another 6 months or so. Then I come to understand and think that, yeah, actually I'm able to do this. But let's really say most of us will not think that we have the ability. We are born to be just think that somebody else can do it, not us,
Of course.
unless we're born into a family of divine who do divination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because if we believe that about the material world, about various aspirations and purposes and careers, and we believe we can't do them, how much more for that which we can't see or can't necessarily perceive with our five senses? So
Yeah.
it's even more of an arduous task, not to mention what others might say or believe. They might think you're crazy. I've experienced this myself. There was a period of my life when actually I took an interesting or similar path to you, albeit my path started with Christianity.
Mm.
It didn't stay with Christianity. It was just sort of the catalyst. Um, and I'm not a religious person now, although I'm people would say I was spiritual, but that was the starting point. But then I hit a similar roadblock in my life with where in which I had to be honest with myself, and I realized that the same thing that actually was the beginning of my journey
Mm.
also was becoming the limitation in terms of evaluating, do I believe it all and what else is out there? And so I spent a similar amount of time. I think you said 6 months from the tragic that the period of your
No, 6 months since the first contact. The first contact, yeah, which is about the same time, but it takes me this whole 6 months that while all the time I'm being contacted just to get confirmation. I know for real it's like I'm speaking to you. I know for real I'm speaking to you, but
Mm,
just to make sure, I'll go back and say,
yes.
is this did I just
Yeah.
had a Zoom call with Nat? Yeah, that's all I did.
Yeah. Um, and I spent 6 months meditating, doing a specific meditation where I was specifically focusing on the energy rising from my root chakra to my
Right.
crown. And I could feel the progression over the period of 6 months whilst trying all sorts of meetup groups, basically groups, but groups focused towards sort of people who were like psychics or spiritualists, just checking it out and getting a feel for it, and ended up spending a year in a psychic group of star seeds, which is interesting. That was a really interesting experience.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, you often second guess because it's almost like, I know that this is taken from the Bible, but all wisdom is wisdom, the idea of a still small voice. Um, yeah, that that's there, but you don't know whether it's madness, you don't know whether it's an angel and a demon on each side of your shoulder. If you
Yeah.
believe that, you don't know if it's your intuition, you don't know if it's another entity, you don't know if it's your higher self, or maybe it's a bit of everything and you need to discern. But yeah, yeah.
Mm. What was interesting is I knew they were divine beings, but I just wanted to make sure that what like what is the content that they told me, is it for real? Because it's like, okay, let's put it this way. When we go through teenage period, if we're a bit spiritual or a bit religious, when we go through teenage period, we always wanted to dabble. We wanted some kind of psychic power. We just want some kind of magical power. So
Mm,
you spend another like 10, 20 years, and then suddenly you realize that, you mean I have it? There's a bit of excitement in it. But
mm,
then you also wanted to make sure, okay, what else can I do with them? So you tested various things. Some things doesn't come. Like, for example, I say, okay, what number is tonight's lottery?
yeah.
They are not gonna give me. So I'll be questioning them. So it is things like that through the various exchange that I'm trying to make sure that, because there are certain things for example, I can at one point I asked them, say, okay, that chair, because my mom was giving me a lot of trouble, and she said she wanted to throw away a chair that I keep in the additional bathroom. So I
Mm,
said, is it still there? Because I came home and I didn't see the chair. And then they told me that, say, yes, it's still in the bathroom. I said,
yeah.
no, are you sure? You're very sure. So I have to wait till the next day when my mom is out of the house and I peep, it's really there. So those are the little confirmation. But at the same time, like I said, there's certain thing when I ask, who is the name of that person that just talked to me, and then they will tell me another. That's not accurate. So it is through this kind of process, but eventually I kind of know why. Why certain question they can't answer me, or why certain question they deliberately let me down the wrong path.
But,
Because
mm,
I have to, for me, my learning process, or any information that I give out in terms of my writing on my blog or video that I need to channel and everything, I have to go through a certain verification process.
okay.
Uh, so different from, of course, various tarot readers, they got various ways of picking up messages from the spirit.
Mm,
For me, like, okay, let's say, for example, I have, because I do spiritual coaching on the side.
mm,
So let's say there's certain cases I need to find out. I will have to do, let's say it's something that's out of my depth. I have to do crash course and learn about it. They will not tell me this is the way you do this, in not why this person has this problem is because of that. You must plus this herb plus that medicine, then equals to what. They will not tell me the formula. I have to
figure
break
it
it
out.
down. It's really like going through a class. I have to break it down and try to figure it out. Why is it so? Why is this person behaving that? Or
Mm,
look at similar footage. Why is this person body language that? Because of my supercomputer, I'm able to put things up quick, and I say, okay, is it this?
yeah.
Then they will say, okay, give you the next clue. So I have to learn. So it's almost like, they govern. These
Yeah,
are people's secret. They can't just reveal to you like that.
yeah. This, yeah.
So I have to learn. Yeah.
This is interesting because it brings two challenges. The first is that the way in which we develop techniques to actually strengthen our connection with the unknown or spirit guides or other entities, or just even the expansion of consciousness to be aware of, let's say, subtle matter, um, is can be personal to each individual. There are various universal concepts, but people develop their own techniques that ultimately do the same thing and follow the same principles, but they're personal in a sense of someone has developed their own style of doing something, which to some might seem like people can make up something as they go along, which isn't necessarily true. It's a bit like I'm sure that everyone in the church or the temple, even though they live by a certain dogma, do things exactly the same, which is why you have such a wide number of churches, for example.
Mm,
Um, I think the second thing is interesting is that I think this is another universal concept with humanity, that a lot of people I met in the community, they believe that the guides that they spoke to were all knowing and they had to, let's say, blindly follow them. Um,
mm,
well, if we operate on the guise of free will, we don't. But also the fact that guides, they don't necessarily know everything. They have their own purpose, but their purpose is usually aligned to you at that particular time or vibration. That's at least what I got from it. And I think the other thing is that guides are never forceful. They're not that um uh, no one is ever forceful if they're coming from the right vibration for something, because they understand the idea of agency of someone to be to find their own way even with their own guidance.
mm. Yeah, for my they did tell me that my path, I have to adopt a researcher, explorer point of view. So
Okay.
everything I have to go through, and that's why, like, the name Allure as Alchemy, which is the name of my Facebook page, was gifted by them. At that point in time, I just know the rough meaning. My vocabulary wasn't that good. I have to look up dictionary, but it all makes sense, in terms of alchemy, because when I look back through my life, especially my working life, I'm like, what, project coordinator, events organizers, film producer. It's all about bringing two different or more than two different things together and make something to entertain people or create something else. So when that is a form of alchemy,
Yeah.
and when I come into this, because alchemy is a huge part of what I have to share, which means I have to go through the trial and error.
Mm.
So, um, like I grow up in the lower working class family, right? So that means I know what is it feel like when you don't have enough money.
Oh, I've
And
been
then
there.
when I
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I work my way up. But when I hit that roadblock, when everything starts slipping away from me until eventually to the passing of my husband, I'm
Mm.
now back to ground zero. It doesn't feel good, because you manage to get somewhere, not great, but you manage to earn a seat at the table, and then everything starts spiraling down, and it's difficult to have to learn to let go. But because of that, I I got to learn what is it like for somebody who has everything, or so-called at a point in time you're satisfied with your life, which a lot of people in their they call it the midlife crisis, right? At your midlife, when you manage to achieve something,
Mm.
but a lot of time these days, because of retrenchment and the real world problems, then they suddenly or hit an illness or something, they lost everything.
Yeah.
And how do these people cope? A lot of people didn't get through it, as we know in recent time with mental health or people who take their own lives. Sorry for the trigger.
No, no, it's that
Yeah,
it's true. It's unfortunate, but it's true that yeah, not a lot of
yeah,
people.
and because of that, I'm put in that corner, and I have to learn how to swim. Basically, I can't swim, so they just dump me there in terms of what the divine do. And at that point of time, I said, what kind of divine being are you? I know that you make me went through that. But when I came out of it and I realized what is it for?
Mm,
Why I have to. Because what happened is I didn't realize what I have learned. Uh I'm always very self-aware, but when people start responding to the blogs that I written or videos and in huge
mm,
overwhelming response to me and in the way that they say that I help them and then I realized, because they say it's as if you're speaking to me, and then I knew that this path that I do, I have to try. Then I'm able to, it's like you digest, you process it. Then when you write, is there any filmmaker or any poet that when you went through it or any songwriter, people will say, yeah, I can resonate with that song.
yeah,
It is exactly that, so we are the walking as alchemists, as you poet and musician as well. We are the walking alchemists to help people. We have to go through it,
y-
so there are experiences like that, but as well as those that I personally can't experience because one person can only achieve. So I have to do enough study and observation and everything. That's why I say that like the CSI process,
yeah,
have to pick and put things apart and put the jigsaw puzzle together and ask them, is it this? Is it something like that? And then if not, I have to, it's like a project timeline that I have to work with just to
yeah.
find out.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's really interesting. As a poet and um a writer, I feel the same that what I write is basically a transmutation of emotions, not just my own, but those wrapped up in the collective consciousness, experiences, emotions, and energy. And my job, in part, I believe, through my writing, is to resonate with others and help them heal.
Yeah.
Um, now, we used we both in previous times with writing poetry or anything actually, when you just start writing off the top of your head, you used to call it inspirational writing, and some people would call it channeling. Both statements, I believe, are true. It just depends on whether you're both the writer and the pen, or you're just the pen and the
Mm,
someone else is the writer. Um,
mm.
um,
If you are doing anything creative, I can confirm with you. If you're doing anything creative, writing, songwriting, film writing,
mm,
anything that is creative painting, it is trinity. So it is ourself, right? Our soul and whichever the higher forces you're working with or the definitely is trinity.
yeah.
So that is why a lot of times a lot of those I mean all those pop stars or even Bob Dylan, you see, I don't know how I wrote those songs.
Mm,
And there are times my late husband was a damn good songwriter as well. It's a shame he didn't pursue it. And even at times, I'm sure you look at the some of the things you written 2 years ago or even a few months ago, and say, how did I write that? You're like surprised, So there is another being, and it's just that it has to be, we have, because we have a certain experience, we have a certain craft, a certain gift, But our soul, I have a huge emphasis on our soul because I realized that there's many definitions to soul. Everybody has a different definition. I myself found out that I have we all know we got soul, but I found out that my soul as a being when she was dying, that's when I knew that I got a soul in it.
okay.
And I have to nurse her back. And from then on, I realized that the impact of what we have as a soul, if we're connected to it, everything is easy.
Yeah, I yeah, I think that when you're connected to your own soul, or let's say higher self, you
Yeah.
there's a reserve or a kind of power that you can't necessarily put into a box or bracket. It just exists, and it kind of seems to provide a little extra oomph every day. But if you connect into it, it's an amazing thing. And we as human beings in our current stage of evolution and growth tend to use it for one or two things, when actually
Mm,
that energy can be applied universally in the same way that we use certain tools to for divination or
mm,
for cleansing. We use people, the most common tools talked about, I guess, in the spiritual community, we've got crystals. People talk about tarot cards, they talk about oracle cards, they talk about sage. um the tools themselves aren't the source of the power. They work with us to actually enhance and bring about and amplify that which is within us, and they have their own consciousness and their own
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
Ritual is one of the creations for the purpose of focusing and harmonizing that energy, which is why both the spiritual community and the religious community have rituals. Even though the religious community doesn't consider itself spiritual, but really it is. It's a spiritual part. They just practice these they just have these practices, healing, or speaking in tongues, but not realizing that they're universal, and those things evolve and change over time. Nothing is fixed in terms of how
yeah,
people connect with themselves and the divine, you would call it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think I previously shared with you that from my stance that I work with divine of beings of all divine, any faith, as long as they're divine, I work with them. And it's through that that I came to the understanding. Prior to that, I more or less I believe that, but they kind of confirm. Of course, everybody got our own divine truth, depend on our soul's path. But it's that I my personal stand is there's no difference between spirituality and religion.
Mm.
The only difference is whether there's a middleman or institutionalized. Because
Yeah.
so often we see that even certain spiritual group, they got a bit of
They
traction.
become cult-like, or
Yeah, exactly. They have their worshippers and all, from followers become worshippers, that kind of stuff. And how is they not a religion just because they are part under a certain label? And I think that's ridiculous. We have to, if the one thing that I hope is in terms of my sharing is I know that the spiritual community, uh, this thing needs to be a separate subject altogether. But I just feel that there is there's a lack of exposure to various different forms of even if it's just touch base, a religious or spiritual group all over the world, just to understand it, that even if a religion, do not just look at them because of the book of the scripture
yeah,
that was written thousands of years ago.
yeah,
There's probably no vetting process. It's only, as we all know, you're right. If they've got no vetting process, or maybe the vetting process is only one person, maybe he has to rush a book overnight. There's many possibility that has been written in a certain way to appeal to a certain consciousness back then, you know.
yeah. Um,
And then that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be some truth, but not everything.
no,
But but I felt that there's too many debates over, it's a pick, it's a nitpicking,
as people
instead
can't
of,
see the
yeah.
wood from the trees or the forests, it's
Yeah,
um
they should be giving credit when credit's due, instead of saying, oh, because spiritual one is better than the other. There shouldn't be one better than the other, but rather than there's certain things that we should look at it. That was then, but
yeah.
now shall we review? Shall we look at it again and say certain thing that was misogyny, certain things that is racist? Maybe we should really look into it and say that, okay, in current time and day, after so many wars have passed, I think this doesn't work anymore. I don't think any religious leader so far
Mm,
put themselves forward and say, look, this is something that we would like to correct.
yeah.
And that's why there's all this debate. But to me, it's moving on. Spiritual for us, general people just doing the spirituality thing. Forget
Yeah.
about the all these differences. Just look at what ultimately can we be a decent human being. That's it.
Mm. I feel
You
like
know.
there's too much exclusivity within the confines of a particular religious book, whatever that book might be, when they're confining the access to the wisdom that others have, everyone has, that people can express in passing. People
Mm,
can write even in fiction and other material that makes other literature or expressions just as valuable as holy texts or spiritual texts. They just have a label that claims exclusivity and divinity when they don't have any more or less than, say, um, let's say Star Wars or something.
yeah.
That might be quite offensive to some, but that's just my opinion, that wisdom's a
Mm,
universal concept in the same way that there are messages of wisdom, let's say the Bible. There are also things that clearly come from the space of someone's own biases and beliefs,
Yeah.
that are abject to their higher selves or those around them. Because as you grow, you elevate, and the people within your sphere, in the material world and also in the unknown, in the spiritual world, also grow and change, because there's constant progression. Even those guides we speak to, they're also on their own journey.
Mm.
But we as human beings have like savior mentality. We cling to something, whether it's a religious figure, whether it's an angel, an alien, um, an object. That's sort of like a real that's a real sticking point for human beings at this moment in time, and it has been for a long time. Rather than look at the power itself and look at the object that the power is channeled through.
But I think this is we're almost reaching to that. I think what changes, I brought this up to just only a couple of friends, is in recent years this global shutdown thing. The intention of them to shut down all the religious places. I remember when the news came out and they were really quick. So I went to my local temple, right? They already shut very quick morning, and then a couple of hours. I mean, how do you manage to get that done? Strange. But anyway, I went to lodge an official complaint to the divine beings. I just said, look, something smells fishy here about this thing.
Okay.
Please go and find out what's going on. Now, why I said that, during that time, there's a huge change of everybody's lifestyle. People who, and livelihoods. And there, of course, there are people who are ill, already chronically ill or terminally ill, and they've been not allowed to have certain access. There's a huge change in our lifestyle. When you do not have the usual way that you can go, when you do not have the GP, general practitioner, doctors that you can go, what do people normally do? They like to go to pray, whether to a church, in a temple, in a mosque. They just want to say, look, I don't know what is going on. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about my livelihood. I'm worried about money. People want to pray. You shut all those places down. What is it going to do with the mental health? Which that is exactly what they say. The mental health issue comes up. They say people are going to have the issue.
Mm.
Because of that, everybody been at home. And I realized over through the internet, I observed how various groups that you didn't think that they don't normally interested in spirituality. They are more religious, or they have an apathetic. Suddenly, people find the access and they start looking in, a lot of reflection. So it actually is like it was unintentional, but it actually progressed the spiritual community forward. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I think the universe uses events and things that happen in the human world, whether it's Earth or some other planet or plane, to its advantage to help people see something, in the same way that when we experience trials or even karma, which isn't a negative thing, when I mention the use of the word karma, we don't realize it's actually that the universe turns it around on its head to make it for us to learn
Mm.
who we are and also who we aren't.
Mm.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting the way that the spiritual community progress.
Yeah.
The love and light in particular, we call it, right? I think about, if I can say, possibly about 6 years ago, all you can see is, we call my late husband and I like to call it the Sawyer Brigade. Those who are maybe in a more privileged background, and they were after their office, then they go to the New York Times Square or certain thing to do the yoga. They like to be seen in groups
Yes.
doing certain thing, wearing certain attire,
Yeah.
going to buy all these things. It's all about how they look. It's an Instagram friendly thing. But because of what happened in recent years, you are talking about the ordinary people, the Joe public, the people in the working class and all this. Suddenly they can't even go to the construction site. They can't even do anything. And they are the one who suffer the most. And so many of them now are in the love and light community, and they are brilliant.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
they are the warrior.
Mm.
I call it, we are the seeds that very, because there's a certain huge leap of consciousness that they were always been doing the same. They will be marginalized. No fault of their own. Sometimes it's just the way we're born. But suddenly there's a huge leap, and people say, no, I want to have my I
Yeah.
might say, and I think that's the whole thing about, because we have progress, like you say, we progress so far. And the point in today, we're still talking about people being homeless, people having war. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. That it's about time that those people put in position of influence and power can't laugh their head off or just swipe it and say you're with me or you're without me. No, in today's context, there shouldn't even be a war. That's it. End of story. I don't even know why the aji-baji and debate over it. So I
But
think it's great that we are making progress in terms of people seeking in and finding their own truth, and not necessarily through a certain
yeah.
uh, a talking head or certain books or certain thing. But that's how the whole thing. Through my working with the divine being, they don't care what religion or what faith we're going. I say
Mm.
so long you're a decent human being,
Yeah.
you know, you
Mm.
can go in another form, because everything is a way of us showing you how to be, to live in harmony. Basically, that's the key thing.
Mm.
So, yeah, and I think that's just the when this love thing, right? When they say love is the answer, it sounds cliche, as we all know, especially yeah, a poet and all this. Is there any other way of saying? However, I have to say that I always think that it's cliche as well, but now that I think it's true, as is when them, okay, they mean the divine beings.
Yeah.
Some are like departed ones and all this, and some are like spirit animals and all this,
Some are
and the
full.
various, yeah, be and even let's say we reincarnated together, right? That we
Mm.
do this exchange and all these things. The love that we share, right? That is unimaginable.
Mm.
Okay, it's like my late husband, right? I lost him to cancer.
Yeah.
What suddenly, because of that, I have this. It was my time, because it was my time for the awakening.
Mm.
That what a it's like you have to lose something, because it's a cycle. He has completed what he has to do,
Yeah.
and to look at it from the point of view, each of the us human being, each of the animals and everything, we have a cycle, and then we have to end to give way to for other.
Yes.
There's a form of love.
Yeah.
There's a form of, yeah.
Um, okay. I've got to unfortunately got to close the
No
conversation.
problem.
I,
No
I could
problem.
go on for quite a long while, but um the meeting is scheduled to end in a minute actually. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you. I may be in touch in the future to have another conversation.
Yeah.
I feel there's far more to come. If you could just give a quick shout out and plug to your social media.
Yeah, it would be Allure X Alchemy. You possibly, because you'll be
Yeah.
sharing that, right? Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, which I write longer for deep dive, or Instagram, it's just pretty pictures. But I'm on TikTok, and I'm eventually going to go on YouTube. Recently, I have a blog series that I
Mm.
just started today.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Mm.
All right, it's been lovely speaking to you. As I said, I'm going to be in touch and we'll speak again. Yeah, but fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
giving you the time.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.